The world won't understand you. Hey, but it's okay. Said the world won't understand you, 'cause I made you in my own way. Said the world won't understand you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 28 of In a Good Way podcast. Today's special guest is Ana Montañez. Hello, Ana. Welcome. Thank you for being here once again.
Yeah,
Thank you.
good to be here.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm really excited. You know, you've been a guest before. You were actually on episode 10. So, this is episode 28. So it's been a while. Yeah. So thank you for being there. I think 10 as like one of the first episodes, really. First 10. So,
For sure.
so thank you.
Yeah.
And it's funny, we talked about so many things in that last interview. I won't recap too much, just so, people are interested, they could go watch it, and I think they should, because, we talked about so many things. But just a quick introduction or, to you is like, you're executive producer of Odyssey Storytelling in Tucson, Arizona.
Yes.
So,
that's right.
Yeah, you're an amazing storyteller. That's kind of how I first saw you, and that's where I got the idea that I wanted to interview you. Just for those that don't know, right? So today we're actually going to talk about dreams and things. So you have very vivid dreams, premonitions, and you shared one recently with me. So yeah, let's hear about it.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so first let me say, I don't know if I call them premonitions necessarily, but I do think that this is how I like to think about dreams. I think that dreams sometimes do tell us something, but I think it depends on the person of, like, for some people, it's a very clear premonition. And then for other people, I feel like for me, it's like symbols. And then I have to take the time to think about, what does that mean? And sometimes it's easy to figure out what it means, and then other times it's not. Like, so the dream that I recently had, which I actually just shared with my friend. I used to work with this woman, probably early mid 2000s, something like that. Okay. And we still keep in touch, like, we're good friends. She's Pomo, of the Pomo indigenous tribe in California. And I don't know that much about her tribe or anything, right? Like, I just know that she's Pomo because she would talk about it sometimes. And anyways, we knew each other from Oakland, California. That's where we used to work together. So that's really all I really knew about it. Haven't talked to her in a long, long time, but we keep in touch. And a couple days ago, last week, I had this very specific dream about her. So in my dream, she was laying down on her back, kind of like resting, I guess you could say, on this flat surface, kind of a stone, almost like a table, but like basically a rock, essentially, right? Like, and it was right in front of a very big lake. And then around her, around the rock, were like these elder women, and they were weaving baskets and singing in a language that I didn't understand. So I was more of an observer, and I was kind of like, so like, what am I doing here? What are they saying? I don't know what's happening. Is she okay? Or is this like a healing thing? Like, I had no clue. So I really just kind of the next morning thought about it and was like, I always kind of hesitate. Like, do I tell that person? Because it's always, you never know how people are going to react. Right. And so I reached out to her and I messaged her and I said, hey, I know it's been a minute since we talked, but I had this dream about you and I just felt like you should know. And I described what was happening. And I said, if it's meaningful to you, hopefully means something. I don't know, whatever. And she was like, yeah, actually, she's like, that's very meaningful to me. Like, she said her tribe actually is from Lake County. And that's where she lives now, which I didn't know she moved out there.
Oh, wow.
And it's literally like in front of the lake, right? So that's where her tribe is from. Later we got to talking, like, so the snippet that I sent you was like the beginning of that conversation, but later we talked too. And, her people actually also are like basket weavers. It's one of the major things they do.
Wow.
So she told me her grandmother, great grandmother or grandmother, has like a basket in the Smithsonian. So like it's like a big deal for them. And she mentioned that, you know, she was like, yeah, she's like, I actually just got a promotion at work. She's like, so I wonder if it had like something to do with that. Like maybe, you know, maybe they were, you know, giving her good vibes, good energy. Who knows? Right. So that's kind of how I took that one to mean something about what was happening. But I don't call that one a premonition necessarily, because it's not like I was coming up with like, here's something that's going to happen to you. It's more of like energy or vibe, I guess you could say, around a person's situation. There, the other one that I told you that I was like, oh, I would definitely want to share this story. I can jump into that one too if you want. That one was a little bit more warning premonition, but I didn't know what it was. So it took me a while to figure out, and then later it kind of clicked for me. But you know, it's like as you start to get into life and you're like, oh my God, that's what that was, you know. But sometimes it takes a while. So.
Yeah. No, you could. Well, just real quick, I guess, before you go into the other story. See, for me, this is amazing because to me, everything ties in, right? Like I knew I was gonna interview you, but the person I just interviewed, I didn't know what we were gonna talk about, right? Like it was my first person. So this is the funny thing, right? Because you're a Virgo, right? And we talked about Virgos. No, it was funny because she mentioned something about like the nodes, right? I don't know if you know about your nodes, like North Node, South Node. Oh, okay. Yeah, so the North Node, South, it's kind of like your North Node is supposed to be the direction you're supposed to be kind of going in, your compass. You know how they say like your compass? So the North Node is like your compass, or you like your astrological compass or spiritual compass or whatever. And the South Node is supposed to be like kind of where you were in past lives or in your past life. So I barely figured all that stuff out this year. And like in the beginning of the year, probably, and it made a lot of sense to me. I watched like, you know, some videos on it where they explained it really good, and it all made sense to me. So I was blown away. And so we were talking about that, and you know, that person is like, I guess I knew they had Virgo because what things they were saying, right? They're talking about having like listing things or being very. That's why it's funny. It's funny because, you know, I kind of said about how I have a love-hate relationship with Virgos, you know, like, but it's funny because I have a Virgo friend, and I think she just found out, like, I guess her North Node is Gemini, and my North Node is Virgo, and I'm like, what? Out of all things, like a Virgo, so it's kind of like I'm supposed to be more Virgo-like, like, and it makes sense to me. And so the video I had uploaded with her, I know I'm jumping all over see, that's a Gemini thing. I'm like going from here to here to here. So the video I just uploaded, I took it down because in the beginning I had put episode 26 and it was episode 27. And it took like 3 hours. It took like 3 hours just to upload, right? Or 4 hours. So I was like, damn, at first I was like, it's fine. It doesn't matter, you know? But then the Virgo thing, and it's funny because I just mentioned like that's what kills me about Virgos. They're so meticulous. And to me, it's like, just do it already. Like, who cares, you know? And here I am, like, I knew I couldn't live with it. I was like, damn. I uploaded the video. It's just this little thing in the beginning that says episode 26 instead of 27. I was like, it's fine. I could live with it. And I couldn't after it got in my head. So I was like, wow, okay, I finally understand Virgo. It's like, damn.
There you go.
I'm never gonna.
So it's all the details. Yeah, I think everything I've ever done, jobs, whatever, I'm always but sometimes it's bad, right? Because sometimes it's like that saying, you can't see the forest for the trees. Like you're so stuck in the details that you can't like pull yourself out and go, okay, this is what I'm actually trying to accomplish right now, you know? Yeah. So I think it just depends how bad it is for you. But I have to say that I actually think a lot of my Virgo friends, as well as myself, we also suffer from anxiety because of it, because you get so stuck, you know, and you're like, it's got to be perfect. And like, you know, when you get older or I don't know, overcome it, like it's so different to be able to go, you know what? Yes, I can live with that. Yeah. I'm gonna let that one go.
But you know, I guess I just couldn't because I mean, it is like, imagine it took, and even today, the process of having to upload again and all that. So it's so altogether, it's like, you know, 6-7 hours of time that I had to spend, you know, so, but I don't know. I was just like, you know what? like it hasn't gotten a lot of views yet or nothing. Like, you know, I could just like it's fine.
Fix it.
Yeah, I could fix it. No one's like commented on it yet or nothing like that. So I was like, you know what? Let me just
Welcome to
delete
the
it.
Virgo life, man.
Ah, see, so that's definitely kind of how you guys think, right? Like I have to fix it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
yeah, and I thought that,
Funny.
see, like it's so funny that like even that I have a friend like that, right? Like she's a Virgo with a Gemini North. It's kind of like that, like almost the universe puts you next to like people you could always learn from, right? It does that on purpose. And since you mentioned weaves, like we were talking about I mean weaving, since you mentioned weaving, we were talking about weaving in the last yeah, we talked a lot about weaving actually. And it was funny because I was just when she started, because I know how important it is. I asked her that because you know she's from Papua New Guinea, which is funny because I was like, oh, you know, like I'm interviewing you in the future because it was Thursday here and it was Friday where she's at. You know what I mean? So for those that don't believe in time traveling, like I said that too, like think about it. You know, she's already like a day in the future.
Oh my God. So like random, right? Again, I'm just gonna go off on a tangent, but a lot of the research I did in college was all around the Polynesian cultures because there's something about Polynesian cultures for me that's always like, I've always gravitated toward it. Like first time I went to Hawaii, I was like, this feels like home, you know? So like, I don't know if that's like a past life thing, but like, I felt like any kind, because I studied like sociology, anthropology, and like most of the stuff that I did, I was like, it's gotta be about Polynesia. Like I just like was really attracted to learning more about that stuff. So when you said that, I was like, yeah, Papua New Guinea.
Yeah. No, it's such a fascinating. Oh my God, I was like, it has the third largest rainforest. It says like it's sad because see, we even talked about that culturally. Like they said, like 70% hasn't even been explored. But you don't need. I'm sure there's people that live all through there, but to like Western society, it's like, oh, we gotta go explore. Like you know, like 70% isn't explored. Let's go get some natural resources. Let's go. You know what I mean? That's how I think of it. Like, so that's why I didn't agree with that. I mean, even though whatever to, I guess someone from the outside looking in, it's like, oh, 70% hasn't been explored. That they speak, I think, the most languages of any country in the world. I think I saw that. That is like over 850. Yeah, 850 different dialects. Like I thought we spoke a lot here, but I guess not. But just such a fascinating place. Like, you know, I asked her obviously about the cannibalism, but I don't think like I wasn't trying to be offensive. It's just there is like that was supposed to be one of the last places where like cannibalism still existed or something, but I guess it doesn't anymore, you know?
It doesn't. No, it was like an ancient. So this is interesting because, okay, yeah, you could cut this out if you want to, but I'm going to tell you real quick. I did a paper a long time ago on warrior culture because it's interesting to me about gender roles and like the way that we express like strength and things like that. So I was looking at like what countries or what areas, not even countries, but you know what I mean, we call them countries now, had very strong warrior cultures. And New Zealand, of the Polynesian islands, had a very strong warrior culture, and they did have cannibalism, but it was woven into that. So like it's not the way that we would think of it of like, oh, I'm just gonna go whatever, like eat these people. It wasn't for like nutrition or whatever. It was ritualistic. So it was like, you know, I don't know if you've ever seen like a Polynesian haka. You know how they do the dance and they dude. Yeah. So that's a part of it, you know, when they like pop their eyes out and they stick their tongue out and stuff. That's to say like basically like we're not just gonna go and take over your village. We're literally gonna eat your strongest warriors. And like a part of that is this whole idea of like the mana, which is the Polynesian culture. Like it's hard to explain what mana is, but it's kind of like spirit, energy, honor, like all interwoven. So anyway, the point is that when you eat another warrior from another tribe or whoever, you are literally taking in their mana. So it's like spiritual. There's a lot going into it there, but no, it doesn't exist anymore. But I mean, obviously we think it's taboo, right? But if you ever look at some of the stuff, you know, some of the like warrior tools that they had, you know, there's one that literally looks like a big fork, which was like one of the kind of ritual tools of that process. But it's power and everything, right? Of like, hey, we're gonna go and just literally destroy your village. We're gonna keep your women and your kids, and we're gonna eat your best warriors. Like it's crazy, right? but it's like warrior culture to the max that I always thought was like super interesting.
Yeah, no, I'm that's why I even mentioned to her, I was like, I'm not even judging it. I was trying to
Yeah.
make that point, but see, I didn't get to really explain that because I mean, that was part of like my whole growing up. I was just trying to be a warrior. That's it. Like I really expected to not be around this long. You know, I'm glad I am now, you know, because life is more, but when you're growing up a certain way, like that's what I wanted to be. You know, I didn't want to have feelings. I didn't want to nothing. Like that's what I strive to be, right? Like you try to do
Yeah.
things, yeah, to without fear, without this, without that, all that stuff. So I understand that 100%. And even our ancestors, right? Like they say all this stuff like, oh, they were sacrificing all these people, but mostly now what I've researched is that they were sacrificing the enemies, right? So when they would get the enemies from other tribes, well, I guess see back then there were no prisons or nothing. So what do? You don't just set them free. It was like, wow, let's sacrifice these to our gods. You know what I mean? So it was even that,
Got
like
it.
in that way. Like what we might think like, oh, and you know the truth is like we're no one to talk because we like wow I don't want to say we but yeah like this country has
Yeah.
caused more
Yeah.
mass murders than like you know anything you know even recent times really. I mean it's just yeah, so how can they even judge?
Yeah. And the thing that always fascinated me when I think of it, you know, this is just how my brain works, but like we got rid of so many cultural things, right? And so like for example, that idea of hey, we hunt together, we go together as a pack in you know to go for like warriors and whatever we do, right? That we removed all of those things.
Mm.
And then we didn't really like what do we do with that energy? Do you know what I
Yes,
mean? Because the part we are as a people in lots of different cultures. So to me, that's where I think certain things came in naturally, like gangs.
yeah,
Think about gangs, right? Like same type of role when it comes to that. You're a part of something, you're part of a group, you go out in packs, you do things, it's a warrior culture. Like to me, so that's anyway, that's a paper I wrote a really long time ago, but I think that when you remove a culture's traditions, there's a void there. And then we just find a way to fill it. You know what I mean? So
no
anyway, that's my
yeah
that's my TED talk
no
on
you
that.
gave me chills because I always try to explain that to people. I understood that we had that need. I understood gangs. I understood that because I experienced it, right? I had to, I mean, it's crazy. Like once someone had to tell me like, hey man, like, you know, I guess that's the thing. You're always like, I was always like the first to like screw it. You know, there were even times that people had a gun and I didn't care. It was like, I went up to that people and I was like, I'm going to take that gun from you. I'm going to beat the crap out of you. And then, you know, by some miracle, I guess I never met the opposite me, right? Like someone that would have been like, oh yeah, like call, you know, like not that I was bluffing. I really didn't care. I really didn't care. I guess in my head, see, it was that I just wanted to die for a reason. That's it. Like I just, you know, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to go into it because the same, it'll be a long
But I do encourage you if you ever want to kind of look into some of that stuff. Like there's a guy, a friend of mine up in Oakland. His name is Cesar, also goes by Taulol. And he has a thing called Homies Empowerment, which is now like it's a school, but it's also a nonprofit that does a lot of other stuff. And he's done a lot of like basically taking kids who are leaving gangs and need to figure out like, okay, so now what do I do? Like, how do I succeed after leaving a gang? And like, there's a lot of that too. So he weaves in a lot of cultural stuff and like indigenous things, and it's a lot. But anyway, look up Homies Empowerment. I think you'd like it.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, and that took a long time. Like actually, to me, what finally broke that mentality was the military, because it was my first time being recognized. It was still warrior. I mean, see, I needed
talk about warrior culture, right?
Yeah, so I went to because you know they say that it like the Marines was like, I mean, Marines is like that, like right. You're obviously it's a warrior. You have something to prove in that way. Like the Army, I think a lot of people, not no disrespect to the Army, but there was a lot that because I even met guys when I was in the Marines that like, oh yeah, I did all these years in the Army, but like they even said like their dad that their dad on their deathbed was like, wow, if you really wanted to make me proud, you should have gone to the Marines. So after they did like time in the army, then they still had to go like after that, you know, because I think the Marines, if you could move into anything else and you don't have to go through their boot camp again. But if you go from the Army or Air Force or anything else into the Marines, you got to do boot camp all over again and all that stuff. So, you know, obviously that, right? It's a warrior thing. So after that, that was the first time it felt good, right? Being recognized. Oh, wow. So I don't have to be out there on the streets. That, and it instantly stopped. I came back. I wasn't like, if someone looked at me, it's like, I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I already proved something, you know what I mean? Even the police, like, you know, I used to, like, if a police looked at me, I looked at them, and then after, it didn't matter no more. None of that. All that stuff like flew away. So I get that. Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. And so you don't mind if I leave it in, right? Because like you said, oh, you could edit this out.
Okay. You know, and for the record, right, like if you do leave it in, y'all, I am not an expert on Polynesian culture. I'll admit that. I was talking off the top of my head of what I remember. So I just want to say that because I know, you know, again, like that's just like what I read, you know, back in the day. But still, if I get anything wrong, I apologize, folks.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See, I got what you just did.
Yeah.
No, I get it because
Oh,
yeah, because everybody nowadays is like very, you know, it's fine though. It's fine. Like if someone feels they have more knowledge of that, then they could correct you in the comments or whatever. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. So it's so that's fine. What else was I gonna talk to you about?
bring it back to the dream thing if you
Oh
want
yeah,
to,
yeah,
because
yeah.
like, so I guess I'll tell you a little bit about setting it up for that, for what that other dream was. So at the time when I had this other dream, so we talked about this a little bit last time on the other podcast, but I was living in Baltimore and I was having like a lot of just dreams in general that were like spiritual in nature, you know, people from other families or other people that I didn't know, and you know, that were coming into my dreams and stuff like that. So at the time, the other thing too was that a good friend of mine, I'm going to try my best to keep this without too many details on who these people are, because just out of respect for her in particular, but she was in a really toxic relationship. Okay. And we were very, very close, and she had left him, but I could, you know, she was sort of in that space of like, do I go back to him, not go back to him type of thing. I thought she was totally done with him and had no sense of, no reason to think that she had gone back to him. Okay. Let me say that. And we saw each other all the time. You know, we were girls, like we hung out all the time. So anyways, I had this dream this one night as these dreams were coming through, but this one wasn't like involving any of the other type of stuff. It was the heavy like symbolism. I just remember like beginning in a hallway. It was like a dark hallway, and I'm walking down this dark hallway, and there's this woman that I've never seen before that's dressed in kind of like almost like a medieval knight type of situation. Like she's got armor on, and she's like, you know, telling me like kind of follow her like with her hands or whatever. So I'm like, all right, you know. So we're walking down this dark hallway. She opens this door and we are outside. And outside there, it's like it looks like almost like when you go camping, you know, it's like nature, it's at night, and there's a campfire. So I go and sit down with her at the campfire and realize my friend is sitting there. But my friend, like, I tried to say something to her and she couldn't see me or hear me. She's just looking at the fire. So I sit down next to her, and the woman with like the, you know, medieval gear, she walks over to me and hands me this very large kind of spherical thing made of stone, right? Which I couldn't recognize. I didn't know what it was. So it took me a while to figure it out later, like what it was exactly. But basically it was like made of stone, and there was water kind of pouring over it. And she handed it to me. So it was like interesting, like, what is this, right? And so this whole dream was really strange to me, because I was like, I don't know this woman. Who is she? Why is she handing me this? Why is my friend here? You see what I'm saying? So that's where, like, I didn't understand any of the meaning of it. It was all just very symbolic, and I had no clue, like, what to make of it. And I didn't even tell her about it. Okay. couple days later, I go to her house. She, invited me to hang out with her. I brought over some food and stuff, and I could tell she was just like not herself. You know what I mean? So we get to talking, and she's like, "Girl, I've been seeing him again." And I was like, "Oh shit." She said, "Yeah, and now he told me he knows where I live now, because she didn't want him to know where she was living. She said he figured out where I'm living, and he started threatening me he's going to hurt me." And I was like, shh. So then it clicked for me in that moment. I said to her, "I had this dream about you a couple of days ago." I was like, and I don't know if it has to do with that, but I felt very like, the only thing I could feel was like an emotional protection toward her after the dream, but I couldn't make sense of any of it. And so she was like, well, maybe it's because of that. I've been seeing him. She's like, and now I don't know how to get away from him again. I was like, shit. So we had that discussion, and that's a whole other story, right? Like I helped her one particular evening around that. But I shared that dream also with a friend of mine who does like tarot card reading and stuff like that. And I told her about the situation, and I told her what this like stone sphere thing looked like. And she said, she goes, "Look, I'm just gonna take it or leave it." She's like, "But I really think that this woman with the medieval gear on is more of like your spiritual guide." And she was there to tell you that your friend needed protection, because she's like, to me, that sphere, the way that I described it, she was like, that's I think it's called cat's eye, right? Which I think I told you about last time too.
Oh yeah.
Tiger's eye. And she said, that's a protective stone. So it makes sense to me that if she handed you a protective stone and your friend was there, it was an understanding that you need to protect her. And I was like, okay. But like, if I didn't know how to read those symbols, there's no way I would have figured that out. Other than like the emotional attachment of like, oh, I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like feeling like something was up with her. But I wouldn't have been able to figure that out. And so then that's where I feel like sometimes we have to do the work if it's not as clear. Because some people have like straight up, here's what happened, right? And then it's like, okay, yeah. But if it's not as clear, then you have to take the time to figure out like, what do the symbols mean? It's like, why were these women weaving baskets in that dream? Why was this woman handing me this, spherical ball or whatever, the stone ball? Like, I don't know what any of that stuff is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you don't do the work, then you may not figure it out. You may be having actually really like kind of premonitions or dreams that mean something, but you don't know because you're not doing the work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. No, I just started like a few months ago, or I don't even know if it's been a month or something. This is my, not a shameless plug, but like my little no, I ordered from my store. It's like a little dream journal. And before on my computer, or just on the calendar, my whole calendar for I don't know how many years, it just has like little keywords. But when I go back, I'm like, shoot, what did that dream mean? Like, I don't even remember that. And so now I could write it out in detail. And it's crazy because I guess the same. I have the same thing, but I kind of figure it out sometimes. Sometimes I figure it out. Sometimes I guess it comes later by itself, right? Everything, all the pieces fall together. As crazy as it, like how you said, like someone looking like a medieval person. And the one that's kind of got to me recently, but in the end of the dream, it was good. But it was like, I think I made a video of it that I put on my IG, but it was like I had been like kidnapped and stuff, right? So it was weird. Like, yeah, it was weird. But unfortunately, there were two people there that I knew. And then there were like four guys and they were like trying to make me kill myself. And I was like, hell no, I ain't going out like that. So I go to, because, I had the gun in my hand, but they were like, yeah, shoot, if you don't kill yourself, we're going to kill you. So they're trying to do that. And then after I just turned, but then everything was in slow motion, but like exaggerated. And yet I was still moving faster than them. I go you know, I cock it back, and even that was like in slow motion, and then I shoot one guy, and like I couldn't tell because I'd seen the bullet go, but I was like, what? And then when I turned like to shoot the other guy, like I felt like the guy's blood like splatting on me, and then like every guy I'm shooting though, I'm waiting to hear the shot from the other guy because I'm like, I'm moving super slow, like this other guy's gonna shoot me. So I went and I killed all 4 of them, and I left the people that I knew. It was like almost like they set me up, the people I knew, but I left them alone. But later on, I think like 2 days after that, I got in a weird funk, and I feel like I feel like it was all a spiritual thing. Like they were showing me that something spiritually was trying to bind me, but there was this fight, you know, that you can't see. And after that, like I was good, you know. And so that's how I made it sound like, wow, that it had to have been a spiritual thing, because you know what I mean? Like it had to have been a spiritual thing. And I guess they just were showing me that I was gonna be okay, but because it was weird, it hit me out of nowhere, and I was like, what the hell? Like I know I was good, and then it just hit me out of nowhere, and I was in this little battle real quick, and then I surpassed it, and it blew my mind. You know, another thing that happened, I mentioned it in the last interview I did, but it was like on the 25th, you know, the day after Thanksgiving or whatever. I woke up and there was like some being in my room, you know, but it wasn't like human or nothing. But you know, I looked real quick. I did a check, like, okay, there's no shadow, no nothing, but it wasn't just like there. It had an aura to it. And I guess, did I make a video? I don't even think I made a video of it. Oh, I think I mentioned, yeah, in the last interview. But it was almost like something open, like a little portal, like up, because it wasn't on the floor level. It was like up in my room, and it opened up like a portal, and it was kind of looking. Oh, have you ever seen the movie Interstellar?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so this is the there's this part where they're going, and the girl, I forgot her name, the actress, she played Catwoman in one of the Batman ones too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
she sees something and she likes touching it. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And then
It's
later,
portal. Yeah.
yeah, later on we find out it was him that he was seeing. So that's exactly how it looked. And I was like, what? And they're kind of like peeking out, and it had a female figure to her. So I don't know, maybe later when I do something, I'm gonna figure out who it was.
Watch the movie.
Huh?
I was like, spoiler alert if you haven't watched the
Oh
movie.
yeah. You haven't watched it. Well, you should have watched it already. It's a good movie. It's like, no, that movie hit me like, oh man, because I've always felt like, who is this that communicates with me, right? I actually, when I saw the movie, I'm telling you, it hit me like, damn, I was like, I felt like, oh wow, this is exactly, yeah, how I experience these. Like I always feel like whoever, like who's my ghost? Is it me in the, like a future me trying to show me stuff? Because that's how weird it gets, right? Like I always think like, well, how is it possible to dream the future unless you already saw it like outside of time, right? Like out there, right? Like it's already all mapped out. So there really is no future. It's almost like a book, right? Just because you haven't read the book, it's not going to change the ending, the middle, the beginning. It's already there. The book is there. You just haven't read it yet. You don't know where it's going, but it's already there. So that's how I think about it. So this story was already written, maybe, and it's just like, yeah, future me drops in every once in a while. Like, wait, you're you know.
Well, interesting, right? Because like whatever, like not to get too philosophical, but time itself, right? The concept of time, it's a man-made thing,
exactly.
right? We made it up. It's not even real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So then there's so much of that that's just like, it's mind-blowing when you think about it, like how all kinds of things could be happening kind of simultaneously, and we just don't really realize it. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into that. But I think it's very much like a perception thing, because I'm thinking, you know, like I was thinking about like the way we age and stuff like that. Just because I had this like recent thing too, I'll just tell you about this, but you know how sometimes like you think about a person after they've passed away, and you see them maybe not even as old as they were when they passed away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes you see them younger, sometimes you see them older. So to me, that's again like a thing of like, hey, it's all perception. Like, how do you want to be seen? You know? Because a couple of weeks ago, I had this really, really bad migraine on like a Saturday night, and I was up, like just, you know, dealing with it. And I didn't want to wake up my boyfriend. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to just go to the living room, you know? So me and the dog end up in the living room on the couch, and I'm just like, you know, sitting there like hydrating and trying to make it better and whatnot. Eventually I fall asleep. And I swear I thought that it was my boyfriend who like tapped me in the middle of the night and was like, hey, are you okay? Like, are you feeling better? And I was like, yeah, a little bit, you know, whatever. Like, we had a conversation where I was like, yeah, a little bit. Like, I'm just going to go back to sleep. And then I went back to sleep, and I started having all these dreams where I was like, none of it made sense from a time perspective. It was taking place in a house that I lived in when I was like in high school, but I was like my age now. And I was talking, you know, with a good friend of mine on the phone, and then this guy was there. And I was like, who is this guy? He looks just like my dad, but he's not my dad because he looks like he's in his early 20s.
Oh.
Right? So I was like, who is this guy? And he was like, hey, check out this suit. Like, so-and-so bought it for me, my older sister, right? And I was like, my older sister bought him a suit? Like, who is this kid, you know? And then I wake up, and it all just kind of like hit me really, really quickly. And I was like, yo, that was my brother.
Oh.
Like, it hit me that I was like, that was my brother, but he's grown, because he would have been, you know, in his mid-20s by now.
Wow.
If he had survived. So, and he looked just like my dad. So that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I wake up, and I'm like hanging out. It's like probably like, 4 o'clock in the morning or something by then, when my boyfriend normally gets up, and he's like getting ready for work. And I said, hey, I was like, I am feeling better. And he was like, oh, okay, cool. And I was like, did you come by and ask me last night? And he's like, no. He's like, I didn't wake up at all. And I was like, I would have sworn that it was you who tapped me, like, in the middle of the night. It's dark, like, whatever. I was like, but there's a big guy, like, tapped me or whatever. And he's like, no. He's like, it definitely wasn't me. But he's so used to that stuff that he was like, you'll figure it out. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, shit. So I think, to me, like, I don't know, right? Like, I can't, like, prove anything or whatever, but it made me feel very much like that must have been him checking on me. I was having dreams about him. Clearly it was him. Like, the only thing that I could think of was that physically maybe the image came to my mind that way, because I have seen pictures of my dad when he was younger like that. Like, my dad used to be really big on lowriders and stuff. So there's like these pictures in this book of like him with lowriders in his early 20s, like the Mexican fro and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is what this kid looked like,
Wow.
So I'm pretty sure that that's what that was. But, it's an intuition thing that I'm thinking that that's what that was,
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm sure eventually, like I said, like, I don't know who it was that came to me. I just know it wasn't like a human person. I think this is what I think personally. I think they're weaning. See, you've had it since you were little, right? Like I have too, but I think they're weaning me to like really open up. And that was because things have been happening more and more. And so, for me to wake, because my first reaction was like, it's like if, like, you're in the kitchen cooking and someone comes in, hey, and you jump like, hey, you scared me, So it was like that. I woke up and I was like, oh, and then I was like, okay, I see it. It's here. I'm not hallucinating. Like, and I was like doing that, and I turned, closed my eyes. I looked again. It's still there, still like, and it's not just like something still. It's like moving. So I was like, oh, it's not my first time seeing stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna pray about it. Like, and then after I felt back, because I felt like maybe I made it go away, but I actually didn't check if it went away. I just turned and like, okay, I'm not gonna look at it, and then I'm just gonna fall asleep. And I did eventually, right? So I fell asleep because it was like I was still tired or whatever. And and then after I fell back, because I was like, it didn't have negative energy. It didn't, I could see it was like some kind of feminine figure, and it was looking, and it was like that. Like, yeah, I'm glad you saw Interstellar, because that's exactly how it looked. Like, you could see it, but I couldn't exactly see who it was, right? So but yeah, that's great. I mean, who knows? Maybe it'll be someone, maybe it'll make sense one day. But like, I never had a sister that passed away or nothing like that. So I can't like how you were able to make out that it was your brother. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Sometimes of like maybe something that's going on, think about the like the women in your life. Maybe, maybe there's somebody that, needs help with something or whatever. Like, I think sometimes if we just kind of pause and think about like, okay, maybe I don't know who this is necessarily, but like maybe some energy's telling me, you know what I mean, that like somebody is there. You know what I mean? So it's tough.
Yeah, no, well, I felt like it was more like something looking after me, like something was protecting me. Cause like I said,
Okay.
yeah, cause we're actually supposed to do an interview tomorrow on like that, like spiritual attacks and all this stuff. Cause something I experienced with, my guest that I've already interviewed her. She's a tarot reader too, accurate AF tarot. So
Okay.
yeah, we're supposed to talk about that. Cause we actually cause we had a whole experience together. I made a video about it on IG too. I asked her permission. I was like, "Hey, are you okay if I talk about?" And she's like, "Yeah, I mean, if it's gonna help somebody, then So, but now we decided to do a whole episode on it. And what's even that, right? So it was funny. I might as well say it. Hopefully, I'm checking. I always check in. Like, am I okay to say it? Like, are you guys good with that? I feel like I'm getting the okay. Go ahead. Okay. So, anyways, it was funny because after we experienced that, I wanted to do a podcast episode on that, but I don't know. I didn't think maybe she didn't want to, right? So I never said anything. And then now, like weeks later, or a week later, 2 weeks later, I don't know how long it's been. She had a dream about it. She's all, "Hey, I
Wow.
had a dream that we did like this episode on like protecting yourself spiritually and this and that and all that." And I
Yeah.
was like, "What?" I was like, "Wow." I was like, I wanted to ask you, but I never did because I was just like, because it's heavy, feeling like, things are attacking you. Like even that, like I know now, or I feel that dream I had about something was trying to get me to put me in a dark place. It was crazy. Like it was just something
Yeah.
weird. Yeah. And so so yeah, so she had a dream. So I was like, wow, so that happens too. Even when you don't want to do something, the spirit world or universe made it happen anyways. They gave her the dream and it was like, hey, you guys are doing
Yeah.
this, So they're like, you
Yeah.
guys are doing this. And it's funny because my intuition was like, I wanted to ask her, like, hey, let's do an episode on this. But then I was like, it's tough. It's tough. Not everybody you know, it's I mean, obviously, like you said, you have your tiger's eye for protection and all that, so you've experienced that. Like, I mean, if you don't mind, real quick, since we're on the subject, like, what have you ever felt like something was literally attacking you? Like, and what was that like?
Yeah, there was a situation, and again, this is when I was living in Baltimore, but I don't remember if I told you a little bit about this, but my ex-brother-in-law was a police officer, and he,
Mm,
like I always felt like he had like some kind of heavy energy around him, and he would pause in the middle of his shift sometimes, and like take a nap at our house, like if he was doing like pulling a double or whatever, and like would come nap at our house. And the more he was spending time at our house, the more I started to feel like this negative kind of energy lingering, like after he would leave. It wasn't even like while he was there, but it was like when he'd leave, there'd be something there. And it was coming both in the kind of dreams, but like almost that place between asleep and awake, when
yeah.
you're starting to wake up, kind of there where like I would wake up or think I was waking up, and there was this kind of darkness, is the best way I could describe, like a shadow darkness that would be in the bedroom, and it would laugh, and I didn't like the way it laughed.
Wow.
I knew, like I was like, this is not cool. Like whatever this is, it clearly felt to me like it was there for a bad reason, And I would pray about it. Like I would stop and start praying about it because that was, kind of my go-to of just like, hey, if you're positive, you could stay. If you're negative, you gotta go, and just like praying about it. And this thing wouldn't leave. It would
Mm,
laugh at me when I would.
wow.
I was like, this is scary. So I at that point, it was really scary to me. And I ended up, so my friend that I was saying earlier who reads tarot and stuff, I told her about it, and she was like, friend, you got a problem. Like you got to
Oh,
get this thing out of your so we had a good talk about it, and she connected me with like another friend of hers who does other stuff like that, and she gave me some good advice. She was like, okay, where have you seen this energy? And I was like, well, in the bedroom. I was like, but also the basement. I feel like in the basement, every time I go down there, I feel like just, it freaks me out. There's definitely something there. I was like, I just feel like my anxiety goes through the roof when I step down. And she was like, yeah. She was like, okay. So she told me kind of what to do. Like, she was like, you're going to put salt here. You're going to do this. So she gave me like different things. She was like, whatever you feel is your most protective, like your go-to thing. Anything, pick something from your altar. And then she's like, I want you to take that and place it in the darkest corner of the basement. And like, so I just like followed everything that she told me, and I prayed about it for a couple of days, and lo and behold, it stopped.
Wow.
But I had a weird dream about it when it did happen, because she told me, she was like, you may experience fear dreams as this is happening about things that scare you in real life. Right. So she was like, what's something that like you're really scared of in real life? And that's why I was like naming all these things, like, and yeah, I had a dream that there was a snake living in my basement. And then in the dream, the snake was living in the basement, and I killed it like with a machete. And then all that stuff stopped.
Wow.
So I think it all kind of came together. But that's the one like scariest thing that's ever happened to me, where I was like, I could feel that this thing was trying to like drag down our energy. That it was there on purpose to make us nervous, to make us scared. You know what I mean? And like, I could feel it. My ex-husband couldn't feel it. Like, he was like, you might be crazy. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. He wasn't really into all that. But I was like, dude, your brother, when he comes here, it's not a good vibe at all. But it did stop. And then what I did was, by having salt in front of the house, whenever he would come in, it kind of cleared it, where he wasn't bringing stuff back in. But I really believe that has to do with like, we carry, you know what I mean? We carry energy from our actions. And as a police officer, he'd been involved in several shootings, and like, he killed a guy. And to me, I feel like when you take a life, that shit sticks to you. That's just what I believe in, So I think that may have had something to do with it. Was it like all this negative energy around him from his work and the way he does things is what was kind of creating this like negative cloud around him.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. I was gonna say something, I forgot, because I was like so immersed in what you were saying. Yeah, no, like see, I think that's part of why I'm hesitant to open up. Like, I want to now, because I feel like I'm being pushed to be more open, but obviously I guess it's that, right? If I'm gonna be open to the good stuff, obviously I'm gonna start seeing probably the bad stuff too, right? And like, I don't know, I feel like I've been around it a lot, I think, but mostly the bad stuff, I would see it in the dreams, right? Like how you said, like, and I've seen, it's crazy, super negative energies, but it was always like with someone that either had addictions or different stuff, but the same, right? Like how you said, that the actions create these. I don't know, have you ever seen the movie Soul? The cartoon? The cartoon
No.
Soul?
I haven't.
Soul? No?
No, I haven't. I know which one it is, but I haven't watched it yet.
Then I don't want to ruin it for you. It's good though. No, but it reminds me of something from it. Like, it shows something about something with like a negative energy. They actually showed that. And it's funny because, you think of it as a kid's movie, like it's a cartoon and stuff.
Yeah.
But they show that, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting. But it is like that, right? Like things attach themselves when I think it's really hard. I don't know if I could share this because someone told me a story, but I won't, because I haven't asked them.
Yeah.
But no, there was
But
huh?
I think though that an attachment, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like, we talk about it all the time now in our house, because if I go somewhere, especially when I travel, if I'm not wearing like some kind of protective jewelry or something that that I feel protects me, I bring shit home, like just straight up, you know what I mean? Like things happen in the house, or we hear voices or whatever. And so now whenever I travel, my boyfriend's always like, do you have your jewelry? Like, he's checking on me, because it freaks him out more than me necessarily. But still, like, I'll tell you, living out here in Arizona, we took like a girls trip, a bunch of girlfriends from work, and I went to Tombstone. You ever been to Tombstone?
I think I have when I was little.
Yeah. So Tombstone is one of those, really old places or whatever, right? And we were like, oh, let's do a ghost tour. Like we've never done that, And I was like, sure, okay, like let's try this out. And yeah, we definitely felt some shit like on this ghost tour, just little things that were all over the place. But in particular, like there's this the old Birdcage Theater is where we did the tour, and they walk you around and all this kind of stuff. But definitely like the vibe there, I was like, this place is definitely full of spirits. Like I could just like immediately, feel it. And after that trip, I came back and this is in my old apartment, and I felt like I was like, definitely something followed me. Like something's with me in the house. It didn't feel scary. It didn't feel, angry. It actually felt more like it just wanted attention. You know what I mean? So like random stuff would happen. Like, oh my God, for the life of me, I could not keep this. I had this little like spray thing, how like for like scent and whatever, like on the back of the toilet, like just sitting on top. And every time I went, always in my bathroom for some reason. I'd be in the bathroom and like brushing my teeth or something, and the curtain would move like somebody was like touching it.
Wow.
All the way from beginning to end, or the little spray thing would like go flying off and fall. And I was just like, okay, like clearly you're here, you know what I mean? So at the time I had just started dating this guy who I'm with now. And he was like, what's up with all this?
Wow.
Kind of what prompted us to start talking about it, because I was like, well, you should know sometimes things happen to me, So I was telling him about that, and he was like, so what do you do to get rid of it? And I was like, well, I got to sage the house, I got to pray about it. So now it's like a part of just like who we are, like anytime he's feeling something or hears something, he's like, something followed you, something attached to you. And then like he'll sage the house. He'll be like, if you don't sage, I'm saging. Like, let's get rid of whatever this is, But I have to like, again, kind of try to like vibe it out. To me, if it's not harmful, you know what I mean? Like if it's not something that I feel like is scary or trying to cause trouble, like I don't really care. But if it's something that I feel like is negative, then yeah, I'm like, get out of my house. I'm not playing games. Like you're not welcome here. So.
Yeah. And why? So do you think it's more like they know? Cause see, like that, like people that don't, like how you said, even like your ex-husband, right? Like he wouldn't see things or whatever. He didn't believe in it, didn't see stuff.
Yeah.
But like you'll see that, like curtains move, you see this, you see that. And like me too, I'll see things. So what is it? Like, do you think once they make the choice, or it's their choice? They're like, this person sees me, let me start moving stuff around. So that means they're making the choice, or how do you think? I'm just curious. Like, I don't know. I was just thinking about that. Like, damn, that means they decide to do it.
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think that I assume that whoever's on the other side definitely can sense who is more open. I feel like that's definitely like almost like a vibe check. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're cool, you're not, like whatever, I think that that's definitely a thing, because, so here's the thing, right? When you think about energy, and again, I'm gonna get philosophical on you, but whatever.
Do it. Yeah, please.
And, energy scientifically never dies.
No,
It just doesn't. You know what I mean? So where does it go? So, for me, like all my life, I've been trying to think about what matches best with like my spiritual outlook or whatever. And one of the best explanations I've ever heard actually comes from Hinduism, where it's this idea that like all of us have like kind of this little drop of energy, right? Like each of us are a drop of energy, and God, if you will, is the ocean. So you think of us as a drop of water and then like the ocean, right? But meaning that like that energy is a little bit of all of us, and vice versa, right? A little bit of it in us. So to me, when I think of it that way from a spiritual standpoint, then those who are on the other side are already in the ocean. Is how I think about it. You know what I mean? And so for some of us who are more sensitive, I guess you could say, right? We're a little more connected to that energy. It's almost like a magnet to me, where I think they just go, hey, that person, you know what I mean? That person like is open or has the ability or is more connected. So our radar's kind of like stronger, I guess you could say, for them to go, here's a person who I can communicate with. Now, if it's good or bad, that's based on their intention, is how I see it. So their intention is good, then they're going to be a positive. They're just going to be around. Maybe they want attention or whatever, but it's not harmful. And then if they're, you know, sometimes people were negative in real life, you know what I mean? And then they pass on and they're still negative. So who knows what they become?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And no, and see, I believe that, but see, it's like, because I was trying to interview someone with like the, you know, like what is it? Oh, near-death experience, right? Because I found this guy that has a whole channel on just near-death experiences, right? And all of them, like, they'll go, and then some of them have similar stories, right? And I've experienced stuff like that, like even without having, you know, I really don't know how bad it was, like, because when I cracked, I had like the whole scar. Obviously, it was, for my whole head, right? When I was like a junior in high school. Yeah, and you know, that's where your pineal gland's supposed to be. So I don't know if that, from that moment on, that's when I got really sent, because, you know, like, I guess we got picked up by my friend's sister, and there was a yellow light, and she thought there was like this huge, I guess, U-Haul truck coming, and she thought it was gonna stop, so she went, and that thing sped up, and bam, I guess it hit right where I was. Like, we had just got it in the car. Yeah, my friend's sister was like at the light, and we seen her, so we ran to the car, boom, hey, and we got in, and then the light was turning yellow, so she turned, and then boom, that thing hit us. And I just remember, like, I couldn't move from my waist up. I was just kicking my legs because I heard my friend's voice, like, hey, calm down, calm down. And I think I had a white shirt, and it was like, you know, all red, like blood everywhere. And then I think he put a shirt on my head to whatever. You know, I wasn't in the hospital that long, but I don't know if that was the shakeup that, I don't know how bad that was, but it made me, maybe from that point on, that's when I got probably more sensitive. And you know, I've experienced things. So I don't know if that was, I doubt that was a near-death experience. Who knows? I really don't know. I don't know, because I don't remember nothing. You know what I mean? Like from that point. But I guess just to say, like, the near-death experience people, I wanted to interview, because some of them, it's almost like most of them, I don't think any of them really talk about the negative energies. You know what I mean? But like, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe because when they went, some did talk about a void, right? I don't know if you've ever heard about this void thing. That it's like, it's almost like when you go and they do show you the movie to your life, that you don't forgive yourself. So you're like, oh man, I did this bad stuff, and then you're just stuck. So maybe that's kind of like that purgatory people talk about or whatever, because you're stuck watching this and you just can't get over the fact that maybe some bad decisions you made and you're stuck there. But other than that, it's kind of like you go, you get shown what, hey, this is it, and people that choose to come back. Like one lady, it was crazy. She was talking about how she got blown up, and they were seeing different. While you could go back and you'll have like a limp, or you'll do this, and like, I guess at first she didn't want to come back, but then that they were kind of negotiating with her. Well, what if we do this? What if we do that? And finally she's like, okay, that it made sense. So she chose, and then she came back, boom, she woke up. Like she had got blown up in Iraq or something like that, like on a I don't know if she was in the military, she was just there like a convoy. I mean, she actually was already booked, so she told me like to reach out to her early next year, like to try to interview her. So she responded. Like some people didn't even respond, but like her, she was like, "Oh, I'll do the interview. Just try early next year because I'm booked all the way through." And this was months ago that I had reached out to her. So yeah, there's so many crazy stories, but see, none of them really talk about the negative stuff. But to me, I know it exists because that, like, you know, there's gold. Like you've experienced it. You know what I mean? Like,
I think that when people haven't kind of filled their life with, let's say, the day-to-day logic. Do you know what I mean? Because it's easy for us to brush stuff off and go, oh, well, that's just this. Oh, well, that's just that, or whatever. Like, I think we sort of lose our spiritual memory. Do you know what I mean? Because I think we're born with it. I think I'm a big believer of that, because I also believe in like reincarnation, and I think we probably early on remember that kind of stuff, and then it slowly fades away because we start to make sense of the world with what we're taught. You know what I mean? So then it just like we kind of move it away. But I'll tell you some. My youngest stepson, because they're all also very sensitive. But my youngest stepson, he tells us stories all the time that freak us out. That sounds like he's remembering a past life. And moments where he gets like really deep spiritual, but like he talks about it nonchalantly because he's only 5. Okay, so he has his moments, and he was talking to me one time, and he was like, I remember before I came here, I looked different. And I was like, oh yeah? Like, so I mean, mind you, it kind of freaks you out in the moment when he starts talking like that, because you're like, okay, little, you know, at the time he was 4. And he was like, yeah, he was like, I remember being an eagle, and I flew up in the air, and I got food for my babies, and I brought it back to the nest, and this and that. And then at one point he was like, and then he's like, I died and I went up to heaven, and then they put me in this body. I used to be in a different body. Like he was like talking about how his skin was different. He was like, and then I got this skin, and I came here. And I was like, oh shit. You know, like it's interesting to hear, you know, I mean, some people might be like, oh, he just has a really big imagination.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. But
you know, that's clearly like, you remember something, and I hope you never forget it. You know what I mean? Because like, to me, that's special to be able to be like, whoa, like you remember, like whatever it is you remember. Because it's funny because he pieces like these little things together, and like everybody now likes to kind of ask him about it to see what he'll say, because he comes up with like different details. The first time he did it, like I was washing dishes, and he just like, he was playing on like the edge of the counter kind of thing with these little cars and stuff. And he was like, hey Ana, he was like, this is the wall, like the one they have in China where I used to live. And I was like what? You know what I mean? Like out of nowhere, right? And I'm like, oh really? And like his dad was in the living room, and he's like, what the heck? Like it tripped him out, you know? And I was like, really? I was like, what did you used to do in China? And he was like, oh, he's like, I was married, I had a wife, and I had 2 kids. And like he just started like chatting about it like it was no big deal. And I was like, wow, you know? But then there's been other days when like he would do things like he was at his mom's house one day, and he was building kind of like what we would probably think is like a pillow fort or something, you know what I mean? He had pillows all over the floor, and he was doing things, and he was practicing these karate kicks. He's like, dude, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm practicing my karate. And she's like, oh yeah? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I have to build a new dojo. He's like, because I had a dojo and it burned down. And we were like, you know, so like there's these little moments like that. Or even when he said that he was from China, I was like, oh, so you must have been Chinese. And he was like, no. He's like, I wasn't Chinese. My wife was Chinese.
Oh, wow.
No. Oh, okay. I'm like, so what did you look like? He's like, I look like dad. So my boyfriend is black, but he's not. Right. So he's like, I look like dad. And he focuses a lot on his father's skin. Like he'll be like, he's like, I love your skin. And he'll like rub his arm and stuff. And he's like, I used to be like this. Like, you know? So there's these moments where I'm like, what? Like, who are you, child? You know what I mean? Like, what do you remember? Because if I, you know, the way that I connected is, if you really did leave this earth at some point, physically anyway, right? And your energy went back up into wherever it is we all go, and you were given an option to come back, you came back.
Yeah.
And now, you know who you are. But like, when you look at a lot of people like that who are like kind of an old soul, they tend to be like that, you know, where you're like, you've been through something already.
Yeah.
You know?
No, absolutely. Like, I guess, well, when I had this psychic friend, and one day she was telling me about, I guess she saw some past lives of mine, like a lot. I guess there was a lot. And she started describing some stuff, and I was like, oh wow, I've dreamed all that. All those, like, I was like, holy crap. Like, so that's when I first, like, I didn't even need to, like, do I believe or not? Like, it was solidified for me. I was like, okay, so it's real. And then there's even things that I dreamed that there's no way I could know. So to me, it was like, it's funny, see, because I have, like, naturally, like, to the native culture, right? Like, it pulls on my heartstrings, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
like I get really passionate about all things like that have to do with that, right? And so I have had dreams like, and then I'll look them up and I'm like, whoa, this really existed. And it's funny because this friend that I met like at a ceremony, and even when I met him, I was like, I think I came to the ceremony just to meet this guy. Like that was it. Like, because after like it was like a ceremony that was the whole night, like 14 hours all night. And by that time I used to sleep by like 8 p.m. I was on that kind of schedule. And the ceremony started at 8 p.m. and it went all night. And I was like, I think I was hurting more than anybody because it was just till like 10 in the morning the next day or something like that, right? Like from 8 p.m. to like 10 in the morning the next day. And then after I still stayed and talked with him for like until like 3 in the afternoon. And then I drove home with like over 5-hour drive. And I don't remember how I got home. I think my friend was on the phone with me and it was like a miracle. Like, I don't know how I don't remember nothing about those 5+ hours drive, and I did it all like, but I knew after I was like, I think I went through all that just to meet this guy. Right. And then later, like, we ended up going to more ceremonies together and everything. But later I dreamed of like, I've been to tons of sweat ceremonies, but this was a longhouse sweat. It was like, I didn't even know those existed, a longhouse sweat. And then so I went online and I put longhouse because it was, so it's funny that like all these dreams I've had about like where I'm like in a different body and it's like this and that, it's like these native things, right? So, and I'm always like in some kind of ceremony. So this was a longhouse sweat and I looked up and the Iroquois, which is like northern US, more to like the eastern northern US, they had longhouse sweat. So I was like, oh wow. And he was there in that dream with me. And then there was another one where I was in a coming of age ceremony and it was some tribe in Virginia. I was like on a canoe or something or this and that. And then I looked it up, like who does like these kind of ceremonies? It was like some tribe in Virginia. I forgot the name right now, but just that I had never studied that. There was no way I could know these things. And so here I am dreaming of it. So to me, it was like, okay, those must be past lives. Because I mean, why did I dream that without knowing what it is? So I believe, just all that to say, I believe 100% in the whole past life. But see, that's definitely a gift, like your stepson, that he remembers. Yeah. Like that's amazing to me that
yeah,
you could just go there.
It is. I think about that a lot, like where it's like I sometimes wonder, like, what did I forget? Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think you're lucky that you've had these dreams where you are in that different body, or you're so, like it probably is like these memories kind of popping up for you. So, I would definitely write all that stuff down. But, and I do think, like, that's why I feel like when I went to Hawaii and I was like, oh, this feels like home. Like there was something inexplicable to me where I was like, this just feels right, and I, whatever, like some people are like, okay, Anna, like you're just whatever, but I am deathly scared of dying by drowning.
Oh, wow.
Like that is, I can't even watch a movie where somebody's drowning because I feel like I'm suffering. So I'm just like, I don't know, maybe I drowned, who knows, man. But like, I've never done the work to try to figure out that stuff,
Maybe you were on the freaking Titanic, huh?
Man, I don't know.
Yeah,
but it's
it's
crazy.
Yeah, most definitely. That's crazy. I was gonna say something else, but I forgot. Well, I don't know. Yeah, unless there's anything else you want to talk about. I know we had kind of decided like I don't want to keep you forever today. Yeah, because I know the last.
No, I mean,
but the last one we talked about, there's just so many things. Like one thing I'll mention real quick on the last interview me and you did, like you mentioned about how even for your mom, like something of glass broke, like the blender or something, right? And she thought it was her mom, or you both did, right? Like it was her mom giving a message. For me, it was different. Like it was crazy because there was someone I was gonna interview, and it popped in my head. It was like I was washing like a plate, and it wasn't cracked or nothing. It was like, oh, or I don't know if it was a glass cup or something. It was like, oh, you know what? I think I'm gonna ask. But I was having, because I don't know, there's something like, I didn't know like if I should interview this person. I was like, I think I'm gonna interview them, and bam, the guy he just broke. Yeah, so I was like, okay, I won't. Like I'm not like forget it. So in this case, I felt like they were telling me like no. And so I was like, oh shoot, okay. So I mean, it makes sense
Yeah.
because I was just like, it's something different. Like I'm gonna interview this person, and just to I guess it was when I was barely starting. It was probably after even your interview, but it was still kind of starting. So
Yeah.
so it was just funny that happened. It was different. So why do you think, like, out of all things, the blender broke? Like why that? Like, because it is kind of scary to see something like boom. So why did your grandma choose to communicate like that?
I don't know. I think it was in the moment just because we were talking about her and my mom was washing it. So I feel like, it was just like the thing that my mom was holding. So I feel like that it was just kind of this moment of like, I'm going to show you I'm here, is how I took it, especially because dude, she was in the middle of washing it. And a blender glass is not a small thing, and she's washing, got her hands in there. And then it just shattered into like tiny pieces. So it also was interesting to me that it didn't cut her. My mom didn't get hurt at all. It just broke into all these little pieces. And it was like, okay. And the one thing that I thought about after that, actually, it's a good thing you brought that up, because my mom wasn't at the time like really hanging out with her sisters. They had some beef and they weren't really talking as much. And my mom, after it broke, the first thing she said was, well, I guess now I have to go talk to my sister because she has an extra one of these in her garage. So I'll have to ask her for it. So now that I think about it, I feel like it was maybe my grandma's way of being like, hey, get your shit together and go see your sister. You know what I mean? Like, because my abuelita was a very strong-minded woman. So like, I feel like she would press them on stuff like that. She'd be like, who cares what you're fighting about? Your siblings, get over it. So I do think that it had something to do with that. But in the moment, again, I was more shocked by the thing shattering. I wasn't really thinking about that, So it was until later that I was like, maybe that's why.
Yeah.
In her own way, she was trying to create a reason for them to come together,
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. That's no, thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. Yeah. No, and just real quick, like on the, like, even that, how we live all these different lives. Why do you think, like, I don't know, there must be a reason we come into certain bodies and we experience, like I said, see, for me, like, I'm very, or at least I was, and then now I try to not even, but it's crazy because you feel it. It's like that. Like, if I see injustice against, like, brown people or native people, like, I get really, and it doesn't matter that I know that in a past life I was probably this or that, or an eagle, or a freaking rhinoceros, whatever, whatever I was in a past, in another life. Like, it's crazy that you still feel that. So I wonder why we choose to experience, or why we come in as these different things, like, what do you think?
I don't know. I don't really believe that we are connected to specific people and that we cycle through with them. That I do believe, because
okay, so you think it's,
there's like people that I'm connected to where I'm like, there's several people in my life where I know for a fact, I just feel it to my core that I already knew them. Like the first time I hung out with this person, you get that vibe of like, hey, old friend, like I knew you, like that you already have that connection. So to me, those are the people that like we sort of travel through time with, if you will, right? Like that, like you're going to show up in my life again. And then next time again, maybe in a different way. Because I don't remember if I told you this last time, but I was like, we joke with my boyfriend that I'm like, I'm like, I think in a past life I was the guy and you were the girl.
Oh, I think
we joke about that a lot though, because I feel like that's just who I am. Like the way I approach things in a lot of different ways, every relationship I've ever been in, every guy's always been like, dude, you're the guy in this relationship in so many ways. And I think that I do have very like masculine energy when it comes to that. And I don't know, maybe it's the way I grew up, but maybe it is also just from a past life. You know what I mean? So who knows? Maybe this time around I had to be a woman to experience what it's like to be a woman. I don't know, but I definitely get that vibe, because the first time I met my boyfriend, I immediately was like, I know you. Like I felt so strongly that I was like, I already know this dude, and he felt the same about me. So it was really easy for us. It felt like effortless, as we were getting to each other. And there's been moments where legit, like, he is, sitting there like doing something, and then I'll be like, uh-huh. And he's like, I didn't even ask anything. And I'm like, oh, I thought you said this. Like, we like vibe off each other like that, where like sometimes we already know, like, we read each other really, really easily. And I think that comes with time. Like, if you are connected with people for so long, who knows how many lives we've lived together, like, have you ever heard of in indigenous cultures, like marriage by the pipe?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so long time ago when I got married to my ex-husband, a friend of mine, she's like, she does a lot of indigenous medicine type of work, right? She calls herself a curandera and like has like studied in like Peru and a bunch of places, right? And so I had asked her, I was like, hey, can you do like a blessing for us the morning of our wedding before we go and do like the actual ceremony and stuff? And she was like, sure. At the time I was living like right outside of Oakland in Alameda, which is like on the beach, right? So we went to the beach that morning. She did this, she like set everything up. She brought like she brought all her stuff, right? All her like altar stuff and like set up for us. And she asked us that morning, she said, do you want just a blessing or would you like to be married by the pipe? And I was like, I don't even know what that is, girl. She's like, well, in indigenous cultures, like if you want to, right? Like the two of you would smoke a pipe together. But she's like, if you are married that way, understand that it will link you for the rest of time.
Oh,
like you won't just be married for this life. You'll be married for forever. You'll be interlinked. And I was like, I'm good. Like, which, by the way, looking back on it, that should have been a red flag, right? Because if you love somebody and you're cool with them, like for this life only, maybe that's not the right person to be married to. I'm just gonna say that. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so
no.
The moment immediately I was like, nah, I don't need to be interlinked with this man for the rest of eternity. One life is good, So instead we did a different ceremony. I was telling my boyfriend about this like a while ago, and now he jokes and he's like, you're my piping buddy. Like, he's like, he's like, I don't know. He's like, maybe we were. Maybe that's what happened. He's like, but I feel like we're always gonna be connected.
Yeah. That's funny. No, it gave me chills when you said that because I was like, oh shoot. Like I feel like wow, it's crazy. Like, to me, the person that I felt like it was like this being, like you've seen beings from other places. Like, okay,
yeah.
we should have talked. I don't know if we talked about that last time. We should have talked about it, but
Let's kidding.
Say it again.
I'm like, for another one.
Yeah. No, what do you call it? Well, there's this star, like, star people, well, for native culture, that's what they call them, the star people. So there was this being, and I would play around after I seen her. I would play around and call her my star wife, right? But I don't know. I think like maybe because it was weird after I saw them. Imagine, like, it took me 2 months to get. I had to shake it off. I've never felt. I felt like I belonged with them. Like I wanted to go with them, and it took me 2 months to shake that. I mean, it's almost like love, like I've never felt before, like something. Yeah, but I didn't know if it was particularly with this person or just with them, because it was her and like 3 males, I think. It was like her, but it looked like she was in charge, like her and 3 males. And yeah, and I've seen her a few times, in these like visions or whatever. But yeah, I thought like, so I don't know if that's the only, but I don't know. I got chills right now when you talked about that. So who knows if what that means, hopefully it's not with some, I was thinking, I guess, I hope it's not with certain people like from my past that maybe, because it's funny because I say that, like when I tell someone, hey, I don't want to talk to you no more, I'll tell them like I've said that before, like not in this lifetime and not in the next, like something like I felt like I needed to say that to certain people. Yeah. So that's funny. That's crazy. I had never heard of that ceremony though. They gave me chills. Yeah. I was like, oh shoot. I don't think I'd want to do that with anybody.
I don't think so. And that's the thing, right? Like that's a huge commitment that you're going to knowingly. Like I'm okay with the universe deciding it. You know what I mean? I'm cool with like if the universe decides that Will and I are always gonna be interlinked, cool, right? But I'm not gonna like, purposely choose that, because I also think it's a little bit in my opinion, like I think it's almost arrogant to be like, yeah, I'm gonna pick a person that I want to be interlinked to for the rest of the time, because who knows what the universe has in store for us, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I believe it's possible, like but I mean, you feel it at this moment. I can't remember. There's certain people that I think I've connected with, but even that in this life experience, it's like even people that you met that you probably think like, oh, like, this
Yeah.
person is like, yeah, and I think it happens more when you're younger, though. I mean, not that. I think,
Yeah.
obviously, yeah, but because I remember like the first girl. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No,
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I remember the first girl I fell in love with, and I remember I saw her, and I was just like, "Who's that?" Right? I think I was like 15 years old, and then I didn't see her for like a whole year, and then I saw her again, and I was like, and then I ended up talking to her, and then like we were kind of on and off for like years, and then I think finally we kind of boom, we went our
Yeah.
separate ways. But I remember that, like that where you see someone and you're just like, I think that's the only time I've ever in my life done like I guess some stalker kind of shit. Like, wow, my neighbor happened to know who she was. I guess her cousin lived by me, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I know where she lives." And I was like, "Oh, take me by her house." He had a car, I didn't yet. I was like 15 years old, so I was like, "Oh, well, take me," just to see if maybe I saw her or something. And he took me, but we didn't see her, and then that was it. It wasn't like, "Oh, let's keep." Oh, take me again. It was like, yeah. But I did it at least once. It was like, 15-year-old kid, like, oh shit, like, so it's crazy to have that feeling, you know what I mean? So I could see if that would have been something that sustained. But it's like that when you're little, I guess like puppy love or something like that. You know what I mean?
Well,
That, yeah. But I'm sorry, I cut you. What were you gonna say?
I don't know. I forgot actually, but I was thinking. But no, it's all good. But I was thinking. The other thing too is like, you ever look at an animal and you think like, you used to be a person?
Oh yeah.
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 The same thing too. Like I joke now, like, cause with our dog, like he's a giant baby, and he's just like so connected to both of us. He's just like the kind of animal that like he has to be like literally on top of us all the time, But he has a thing about eye connection, which I think is interesting because, especially with dogs, looking at them straight in the eyes, for some dogs is threatening. They don't like that.
They look away. Yeah.
Not our dog. Our dog, you make eye contact with him and he's like, just like, he gives you the like, look at me forever eyes, And so there's times when, like I joke with him and stuff. I'm just like, you're not a real boy. Like,
that's sad though. See, I don't like, cause to me, I feel that like my I have this oldest dog, right? And she was always trying to talk, and anybody that meets her, like, damn, she's trying to say something, because she'll be like, like something, and it's like, she sounds like a person, and she acts like a person. But it's funny that because today's my dog's birthday. It's her 1-year birthday. Yeah. No, I've never had a dog that I would see in like vision. So she's like a little astral traveling dog. So I feel like she was meant to come for some reason. I feel like, there's something, whoever she is, I don't know, So
yeah. You never know.
Most definitely. Yeah. But yeah. So that's why I've treated her like she does so many bad things, and I'm just like, oh, you little shit. Like, I'm just,
I know. I'm spoiled. I get it.
Yeah.
Well, man, this was great. I mean, I think again, we could probably talk all day, but definitely if you wanted, pick other topics at some point, I would actually encourage you maybe at some point think about doing like a panel, where like it's a topic and maybe there's a couple of people to talk about experiences or how they overcome some of this stuff, because I think that would be really cool too.
No, most definitely. Like, I mean, that was one of the ideas like a long time ago, and I did my first live with like Accurate AF Tarot, and I really enjoyed it. It was different, so that was good. And I mean, I guess that's the best way to do it, right? A panel will probably be live and get questions and everything like that. So we had done the live on her channel, so I have to learn how to do it, because I told her, I was like, oh, she has experience with it, so I was like, oh, let's do it on your channel. So but I guess it got me comfortable with it. So now I know, okay, I've done it live now, so you know, maybe I could host one on my channel and, you know, invite people. And
Yeah,
of course,
something to
yeah, if you would like to come on that panel, then that'd be great too. So
oh, cool.
yeah, yeah.
All right, man.
No, thank you so much once again. You know, it was an honor. Thank you for sharing your stories. And I appreciate you being open, and I won't take up any more of your time, and you know, we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Okay, likewise. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, have a good day.
All right, you too. Bye.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, sometimes you just feeling it, you know what I'm saying? You just feeling it. And I wanna feel this way forever.